Bernie Sanders absolutely decimated Donald Trump on CNN over the weekend. This was fun to watch.
Do you see any upside at all to relaxing any of the Dodd-Frank regulations?
You know, it is hard not to laugh to see President Trump alongside these Wall Street guys. I have to say this, Jake, and I don't mean to be disrespectful. This guy is a fraud. This guy ran for president of the United States saying, Donald Trump, I'm going to take on Wall Street. These guys are getting away with murder. Then suddenly he appoints all of these billionaires. His major financial advisor comes from Goldman Sachs, and now he's going to dismantle legislation that protects consumers. This is a guy who ran for president saying, I'm the only Republican. I'm not going to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. And then he appoints all of these guys who are precisely going to cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. So I hope that all of those folks who voted for Mr. Trump because he thought that he would stand up for working people, man, this guy is, he's a good showman. I will give you that. He's a good TV guy. But I think he's going to sell out the middle class and the working class of this country, and that business on Wall Street. He told us, in fact, it's in the Republican platform, he is going to bring back Glass-Steagall. We're going to be dividing up commercial banks from investor banks from insurance companies. Then he has all of the big Wall Street guys on his side, and now he's working for Wall Street.
You know, I had forgotten about that. I'm happy Bernie brought that up because I'm going to bring that up more often now. But it's true that the Trump team fought to put Glass-Steagall in the Republican platform. In fact, when I did the segment, I remember giving Trump credit for it and giving his team credit for it. And I remember telling people, specifically people on the left, that we can't be hacks about this. So when Trump does something that's positive, when Trump says something that's correct, when he fights for something that we agree with, we can't say, oh, well, now all of a sudden I'm against Glass-Steagall because Donald Trump is for Glass-Steagall. And this is the same thing with TPP. Now, on TPP, thankfully, it's the one promise where I agree with him and you likely agree with him, where we actually can give him credit because he did kill the TPP. But these are issues where you're supposed to go, hey, you know what, man, credit where credit is due. If he wants to come to our side and push for certain things, like also when he says, hey, I'm not going to cut Social Security or Medicare, or I want to do an infrastructure bill, or I want to stop nation building, you have to say, great, so let's fight for that and let's work together. But here's the thing. You can't trust a goddamn word Donald Trump says. You just can't. Because his history shows it that he's very Hillary Clinton-esque in that he's been on virtually every side of every issue. There are very few ones where he's been consistent. So Bernie brought up a couple examples right there. He kept saying, I'm not going to cut Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid. Guess what? The people who he's appointing to the Social Security Administration, all of them are people who either want to cut it or privatize it. So he's full of shit. He's laying the framework and the groundwork to come out later. Hear me now, quote me later. They're going to come out and say, oh, well, look, no, we're not cutting them. We're not cutting them. We are reforming the programs, and we're going to make them stronger for the future. This is exactly what they're going to say. And all of that is a guise. It's a ruse to actually cut it or privatize it. That's a guarantee that that's what's going to happen. So that's one example. Another example is Puzder. So he picked Puzder for the labor secretary. And this is a guy who does not believe in labor. He's on the record as saying, I would like to move towards 100% automation in the economy. Okay, I understand when you were a business owner, I understand that, you're going to want that because you want to save money and make more profit and you don't care about the workers and that's the way the system is set up. I get it. But now that you're labor secretary, bitch, no, that's not a tenable position. In fact, that's something that would disqualify you from that position. This guy is an Ayn Rand loyalist. I think he wrote a book that was largely based off of, oh my God, Ayn Rand's philosophy is brilliant. It's so smart. It's so great. We need no regulation and no government. He doesn't even believe in the minimum wage. There were lawsuits against him when he was a fast food CEO because apparently they weren't giving sufficient adequate break time to their workers. So this is a guy, a toxic guy, the last person you would ever want as labor secretary. This is who we have. Rabidly anti-union. You name it. So Donald Trump again out there, I'm the working class, the forgotten man will never be forgotten again. Anyway, let's lower wages. Well, again, I guess maybe on this one we got to give him half credit because half the time Trump told the truth about what he really believes. When Trump said in the debate, wages are too high. They're too high. Remember that during the Republican debate? He was asked, there were minimum wage protesters out front and they were asked a question about it. He was like, wages are too high. Too high? So half the time he told the truth. It just so happens that almost all the time it's the negative comments that Trump makes that he actually wants to follow through on. And again, Bernie nailed it by bringing up Steve Mnuchin, Goldman Sachs. Look, you can't say you're fighting for the workers and Hillary Clinton is the candidate of Goldman Sachs and then say, I need a Treasury Secretary. Steve Mnuchin from Goldman Sachs, please come do that for me. What kind of that's such a grotesque level of hypocrisy. They need to come up with a new word. Hypocrisy isn't strong enough. So you Goldman Sachs for Treasury Secretary. Now, furthermore, it's worse than that. Because not only is this guy Goldman Sachs, he led One West Bank in California. Guess what they did? They would foreclose on senior citizens left and right because they were largely involved in reverse mortgages. So Steve Mnuchin, while he was at One West Bank, they foreclosed even on a grandma who had a 27-cent discrepancy in her payment for her mortgage. So you want to be Treasury Secretary, but that's your history? Working for a criminal organization like Goldman Sachs, who would sell these toxic subprime mortgage packages to unsuspecting clients and tell them they're going to make a lot of money, and then turn around and bet on those same packages to fail. So fraud was the business model. You worked at a company where fraud was the business model, and then you were the head of a company that foreclosed on people left and right and profited off of the Great Recession, even kicking senior citizens out of their home, and now we're supposed to put you in charge of the economy and make you Treasury Secretary because what? Oh, he'll run it so efficiently. He'll run it so great by foreclosing on more senior citizens and by doing more fraud against regular people. Please, man, please, spare me. So Donald Trump is... I almost said Donald Trump is right. Wrong. Bernie Sanders is right that Donald Trump is a fraud.